Well, I'm delighted this morning to introduce our keynote speaker to you, Coach Gene Chizik. And I'd like to just share a little background about Gene with you for just a moment as I introduce him. Coach Chizik is married to his wife, Jonna Chizik, and it's a kind of a unique thing. She was the daughter of his high school football coach. That's kind of unusual. So I think he had to kind of watch his P's and Q's right there at the very beginning. They have identical twin daughters named Landry and Kennedy, as well as a son, Callie. His two daughters are students at Auburn University, and Callie has just gotten a scholarship to go to Furman University next year. Coach Chizik is a native of Florida. He earned his bachelor's degree in education from the University of Florida in 1986. He went on to receive his master's degree in guidance and counseling from Clemson University in 1991. The former Florida Gator linebacker has been in coaching since he graduated from the University of Florida in 1986. Coach Chizik began his coaching career on the high school level as a defensive coordinator at Seminole High School in Seminole, Florida. From there, he had coaching stints at Clemson University, Middle Tennessee State, Stephen F. Austin State University, Central Florida, and Auburn University. He left Auburn to become the defensive coordinator at the University of Texas, where the Longhorns won the 2006 National Championship. Later that year, Coach Chizik became the head coach at Iowa State before leaving to become Auburn University's head coach in 2008. In 2010, Coach Chizik led the Auburn Tigers to a 14-0 undefeated season and a national championship. He is just the second coach in collegiate history to be recognized as both the head coach of the year and the nation's top assistant coach. Some of his coaching honors include the Broyles Award, SEC Coach of the Year, Home Depot Coach of the Year, Liberty Mutual Coach of the Year, Paul Bear Bryant Award, Bobby Bowden National Collegiate Coach of the Year Award, and the Amos Alonzo Stagg Coaching Award. In February of 2017, Coach Chizik walked away from coaching after 2 seasons as North Carolina's defensive coordinator. It was time, he said, not to just preach family first, but to walk the walk. Coach Chizik has been a part of 2 national championships as a college football coach. Today, he's winning on a different field as a father, a motivational speaker, ESPN and SEC football analyst, and an entrepreneur. Coach Chizik sums up his philosophy on the final page of his memoir entitled All In, What It Takes to Be the Best. Coach Chizik states it this way: championship rings are nice, but they are nothing compared to what God promises for those who are all in for Him. Please join me in welcoming Coach Chizik. Coach.
Thank you, Topper. Thank you. Can you hear me? Am I on? Awesome, awesome. Well, look, it looks like most of you stuck around, right? I'm the last event, right? A lot of times it's about half full. No, it's an honor for me to be here for sure. And thank you, Topper. You read that just like I gave it to you. That's perfect. Thank you very much. I travel all over the country. I speak to a lot of different groups. Full disclosure, when I first decided that I would come and talk to assistant pastors and pastors, it was a little intimidating for me. And probably my daughter last night really didn't help anything. So she comes over. She's 21, and she's in college. So she came over for a free meal. That's a shocker, right? And we're sitting in the kitchen. She says, "Daddy, you want to go do lunch tomorrow?" And I was like, "Baby, I'm in Birmingham and I'm doing a speaking gig." She goes, "Oh, who you speaking to?" And I went, some assistant pastors and maybe some pastors. And she's like, "You?" I said, "Yeah, baby, me." I mean, she walked away eating her potato chips and goes, "I'm not sure you fit the bill for that one, Pops." But when she was 11, I got to tell you this. When she was 11, she has that kind of personality. So I was the head coach at Iowa State, and I was really getting ready to go and play my very first away game as the head coach at Iowa State, and we were not good. And we were going to play Nebraska in front of 90,000, and they were rolling. And so I'm in the kitchen talking to my wife, and she's just kind of in there hanging around. You know how kids listen. You don't know if they're listening or not. Same girl who said this to me last night. She's listening, and So my wife says, well, what do you think? And I said, it's probably going to be a long day. And she's like, really? And I said, yeah, we're not very good. So I go down this laundry list of why we're probably going to go to Nebraska and get our brains beat out. And I don't even know my 11-year-old at the time, she was 11, is listening. And I just kind of watch her walk out of the kitchen. I hear her go back and go, yeah, Dad, good thing you got a 6-year contract. So she was 11. I'm like, well, who does that? Who says that? Same girl. Anyway, it's awesome to be here. And the way I understand it, Topper, we got them from all over the country here, correct? Which I love doing some speaking engagements on neutral playing ground, right? See, because normally if you're in this state and you're doing any sort of speaking scenario, and see, look, I mean, I haven't been at Auburn for 6 years, and half the state still dislikes me, okay? And for those of you that are really unfamiliar of the Auburn-Alabama rivalry, because you're from another state, let me give you a kind of a Cliff Notes version of what it's like. So when I first got to Auburn, which was as the defensive coordinator years ago, 2002, so do the math, right? Long time ago. I go to one of my first speaking events, and it was a fundraiser, right? But so I really didn't know what the audience was going to be like, but it was a fundraiser. And so if I use this room as an example, this whole right side was all Alabama, crimson and white. This whole left side was Auburn, so, orange and blue. And it was really split down the middle. But I'm up there doing my thing, saying, doing my deal, and a great cause, great fundraiser. There's probably 800 to 1,000 people. And there was a table right here, and it had a wife and a husband, and they had a little baby with them. And, midway through me starting to speak, the baby kind of started crying. I guess, the baby was hungry or whatnot. And then the baby kept kind of getting louder and louder. And they were right in the front row. And I was speaking, very similar to this. And I've got 3 kids at home, right? So it's all good, and I'm kind of trying to look at them to give them the nonverbal, like, it's all right, don't worry about it. And they so they're passing the baby to each other, see if they can, we've all been through that, right? Parents, right? And they're on the Alabama side. And so the gentleman gets up and starts walking towards the door with the baby. And so I, being the nice guy that I am, I was like, sir, you don't have to leave. That baby is not bothering me. He goes, yeah, Coach, apparently you're bothering him. So that's why I say it's good to be on neutral ground. So I don't have to deal with that. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, do you miss coaching? So as Topper said, I stepped away from coaching 2 years ago. Do you miss coaching? They said, what do you miss? I said, yeah, I miss some things about it. They said, what do you miss? I said, I miss the players. I miss the relationships. I miss the influence. I'm a very competitive guy. So, I miss the competition. And he's like, well, what do you not miss? And I said, well, there's some things that, I said, well, let me give you an example. I said, you remember the state troopers? You guys watch football games where, the head coaches always have their state troopers with them, right? The state trooper, that's your guy, right? That's protects your family. And you really, I'm not going to say in every league you need them, but in the SEC you need them, right? So, boy, we had lost several games in a row, and it was a home game, and my wife is crushed. And she's like, oh, my God, Gene, And we got to get into our state trooper's car. And look, there's 100,000 people outside of the stadium, but we're trying to part the Red Sea, get in the car, and zip down the road because I got to go do a radio show. And so, she's like, oh, my God, we're going to get fired, and this isn't good, and oh, my gosh. And I said, look, baby, it's going to be fine. I said, she goes, everybody's mad at us. Everybody hates us. And I said, well, you know what we're going to do? I said, watch this. And I reached in my back pocket as we're flying down the road. I said, I'm going to roll this window out. I took a $50 bill out of my wallet, and I said, we're going to make one person happy. Watch this. Roll down the window. We're flying down the road. I throw the $50 bill out, and there's a pile of people that see this $50 bill. They scramble for it, and they pick it up, and the guy starts waving, and we're in the back. I said, look at that, baby. I said, we made one person happy today. She goes, can you throw 2 50s out the window and make 2 people happy? About that time, my state trooper goes, yeah, or throw yourself out the window and make everybody happy. This guy's supposed to be protecting me, right? Like, this is my protection. So that's what I don't miss. And then the next question that I get asked the most is, what was it like to coach Cam Newton? I mean, you know, he only played college ball essentially for 1 year, you know, and really played. I mean, he played at Florida and everything. And I said it was awesome. But what's really unique about the Cam Newton stuff is how we evaluated and came to offer him a scholarship. That's the unique one that really nobody knows. So what happened was he was out in this remote area in Texas at Blinn Junior College, okay? And he had some issues at Florida. He went out to play junior college football, kind of get a fresh start. And so we were at a staff meeting one day, and we needed a junior college wide receiver. We didn't need a junior college quarterback. We needed a junior college wide receiver. So, you know, so my guy says, I want to fly out on our open week, which was near the end of October, and I want to look at this wide receiver. Anyway, long story short, he comes back, and he said, Coach, the receiver can't play for us. He's not good enough. But the quarterback is really, really good. And I said, really? Okay. And he said, yeah, the quarterback is really good. And we need to look at him. And I said, okay, well, we don't really need a junior college quarterback. But no, Coach, this guy's like really good. I said, all right, well, you know, so I did some homework into, you know, the quarterback and everything. And so time goes on, and they're wearing me out. We got to bring this guy in. We got to bring him in. And so finally, in a weak moment, I broke down. I said, all right, we'll bring him in. But I'm going to. So I did some homework, and again, we didn't really need a junior college quarterback, and there were some issues at Florida that I wasn't sure about. And I was very conscientious of bringing in the right type of guy to our program, and so I was a little skeptical, and I said, I'll tell you what we'll do. We're going to bring him in on a visit, make it very clear that he does not have a scholarship offer when he comes in. Now, as we evaluate it, as the weekend unfolds, we'll see how it unfolds. I want to get to know him. I want to get to know who he is. I want to be able to have some FaceTime. I want to know what this dude's all about, but make sure he understands that he does not have a scholarship, and he may leave here the weekend without one, depending on just the evaluation process when he comes. So fast forward about 3 weeks. He comes on his official visit. So, you know, we have it all set up in my office. Knock on the door. Yeah, come in. So he comes in. Two of my assistants walk in with him, and there he was. And I'm sitting down at my desk, and I'm kind of writing. I said, yeah, hey, Cam. Nice to meet you. Now, he's 6'6". He's 255 pounds. His shoulders are that wide. And I walked up and I said, Cam, it is great to meet you. You know, you've been our number one recruit forever now. So that was the start of it. Anyway. All right, so enough about the football and the playbook stuff. I think that's really, really cool. It really is an honor for me to be here to talk to you today. And I do have some things that I want to share that I really hope I can impart something on you that at least makes you think. You know, every time I go speak to somebody, whether it's business owners, whether it's football coaches, whether it's, you know, FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, in this case, your job, I really want to at least give you some things to consider or ponder, and I hope I can do that today. But as Topper said, what am I doing now? This is what I do. This is what I like to do. I use a lot of the coaching principles, which I think is probably appropriate with playbook being the theme here. And obviously the ESPN, working with them and doing TV has been great. I love it. But you know, I do consulting with football teams still, so I keep very busy. That's kind of what I'm doing now. But as Topper said, 2 years ago, I stepped away from coaching because as I really took inventory on where my life was, my son was playing high school football and baseball, which he still is. He's a senior now. 2 years ago, he was a sophomore. And I really had to take inventory because I had always spoken strong about how family to me is everything. And what happens to us in our jobs and in the world is that sometimes we say things that we truly believe in our heart, but, our actions don't necessarily marry up with it. And, everybody's got intentions, great intentions. And like I tell players in meetings all the time, when you intend to do this or execute this offense or execute, your intentions are simply failures to act. If you go back and look at the definition of an intention, it's a failure to act. And as I really got there and I really started evaluating what I said was important for me my whole life, and look, I know there's restrictions out there. There's only so many things you got to do. You got to put food on the table. I get it. But I really had to do a lot of reflection. And I had seen 2 baseball games and 2 football games of my sons in 2 years when I was coaching. And really in some quiet moments, I had to say to myself, man, is this what you want when you look back on 4 years with your boy? And you know what kept resonating in my mind when I thought about this? There's a saying that I love that says, go fishing with your boy, and you won't have to go fishing for your boy. And so, I was walking to practice one day. Here was the trigger. I was walking to practice one day. It was during 2-a-days. It was about day number 15. It was hot out. And I look at and I didn't even know, you're in football, you're delirious on day 15. You're just trying to get out to practice and get it done. And all of a sudden, I look out and I see all these young ladies and young men, freshmen, loading their stuff into the dorms. The parents are there. The girls are taking their stuff into their dorms. Exciting times for everybody, right, man? Kids are going off to college. Not sure who's more excited, the parents or the kids, right? But it's exciting for somebody. And I walked by that and I thought, my girls at the time were getting ready to go into their own dorm, and I wasn't going to be able to be there to help them. That jacked me up all practice. I'm not kidding you, like all practice, it messed me up. And I'm sitting there at practice and I'm going, they're getting ready to move, like one of the biggest days, and they're getting ready to go to sorority rush, which, that's a huge deal. And to my girls at the time, it's a huge deal. And I just wasn't going to be there for it. And I kept looking back on that saying, that's just not okay. I don't know how my son gets done playing 4 years of football. And because, yes, I love coaching and it's something I love, I don't really know how I can justify that. So I walked away from football. And here I am. This is what I do. I've done it for 2 years. TV, speaking across the country, and really enjoying my life and really enjoying, what God's given me a platform and blessed me to be able to do. And I've really enjoyed that. But I want to go back and I want to talk to you and I want to tell you a little bit about myself, because other than Topper reading what he read, everybody is a product of something, right? Everybody's a product of somebody. Everybody's a product of your upbringing or your parents or whatever, right? And I want to tell you a story about my father, because this is where it all starts, and it really didn't dawn on me till I was in my 30s. My father was a scholarship football player during World War II. The Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and at the end of the semester, my dad enlisted into the Marines, dropped his scholarship, and he enlisted in the Marines for World War II. And in the Marines, if any of you know any of the history of World War II, Okinawa in the Pacific was probably the most bloodiest, the most gruesome battles that were fought in World War II on any grounds. It was brutal. And of course, me growing up, my dad never talked about it, greatest generation type guy, just not something you really talked about. So fast forward to 2002, I'm the defensive coordinator at Auburn. I get a call one day that my dad is in the hospital and he's not doing well at all. So immediately, boom, I get down to Florida. There's my father's best friend that he grew up with. My dad is basically unconscious. He's in a coma. And I'm coming to the realization that I'm never going to speak with this man again. because I wish I could have and really been able to tell him exactly how I feel in depth. But life moves on. You get married, you have kids, you have a huge job. He went back and forth with me. He saw everything he could see. We had a phenomenal relationship. I told him I loved him every time we got off of a phone conversation. That wasn't the issue. The issue was that he was laying there and I wasn't really going to get a chance to really tell him how I really felt. And his best friend is standing right next to me, and he taps my dad on the foot and he says, "Well, Chizik," he says, "you lived 53, I think he used the number 53. You lived 53 more years than you should have." And that, I heard it, you know what I mean? I didn't really know what he was talking about. So he says to me, so we're walking out that night, me and him together, his best friend. Growing up, grew up with my dad since they were little kids. Went to the war together. His best friend went to Europe. My dad went to the Pacific. He says, "Has he never told you about Sugarloaf Hill?" I said, I don't know anything about Sugarloaf Hill. He goes, "Go Google it." So I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Sugarloaf Hill was in Okinawa, and it was a hill that the United States Marines had to take because it was the highest hill for them to be able to occupy the island. The Marines kept trying to take the hill over and over and over again to the tune of about 7,000 men being slaughtered. What the U.S. Marines didn't know until they got over there and took everything is that the Japanese had been digging in, and they had tunnels built over there that they had built for years for this type of scenario. And every time the Marines went up, they would get absolutely slaughtered. It took them over a week to finally take the hill. Well, my dad was part of a group of men who took the hill. There was 142, and I've read different versions, some vary a little bit, but I'll give you a roundabout. 142 guys went up. They took the hill after 7,000 had been slaughtered. But out of the 142 or 145 that went up, 12 came back. 12. That was 2002, I found that out. That was a wow moment for me. Then I'm going to piggyback that with the second wow moment about my father. I'm at the University of Texas. ABC's doing a national game with us. And the sports information director came to me and said they didn't want to do a special on your dad. My dad won a Bronze Star in World War II as a Marine. They want to do a special on your dad. My dad passed away 3 years earlier, so I thought, you know what, this would be really cool for my mom to watch this and be able to see her husband, right? And then my sisters, I have 3 sisters. That'd be really cool for everybody. Normally, I'm very guarded with that kind of stuff, but I thought, you know, that'd be really, really cool. So they did this special on the halftime of our game, right? And I get back to the office on Monday, and my assistant hands me an email from a man who says, "I know you have to be Gene Chizik. You have to be the son of the Gene Chizik I was with every day in Okinawa. And I've got some memoirs that I kept daily if you would like for me to send them to you." And I was like, heck yeah, I want you to send them to me. So he sends them to me. So this is 2005. Well, he sends them to me. Life gets crazy. My kids are young, right? I get to Iowa, and one night I pull them out. Now it's 2007. I didn't read them for 2 years. 2007 happens, and he tells the story of they were on the island, and there's no action going on, ceasefire, whatever you want to call it. And him and my dad are sitting on a hill, and they come under siege. And I read it. I read it again last week because I had to pull it out to make sure I was accurate. And they come under siege immediately, and he's sitting on the hill right next to my dad, and apparently there's this specific sound of incoming, meaning missiles, meaning something coming in, right? And they all start to panic, but it happens so fast, they're stuck on the hill. Here comes incoming right now, and it is a bomb. And it comes and it lands right next to my father, and it's a dud. Why do I tell you those stories? I tell you those stories because the more my life has unfolded and the more I have heard things like that, I know that I am here at this specific church at this specific time for a specific purpose. It's so clear to me. And you get to this age and you sit there and go, what's our purpose? You know, what are we here for, right? You know, even when I got into coaching, guys, I got into coaching over 30 years ago, and I did it for 30 years. But I'm going to be honest with you, when I got into coaching, you know what I wanted? I wanted to win. I wanted to be the best coach. I wanted everything, and I started as a high school coach. I wanted everything that came with the coaching. I wanted the wins. I wanted the championships. I wanted the rings. I wanted the watches. I wanted the money. I wanted whatever came with it. That's what I wanted. I wanted it. And man, I was locked and loaded and focused on me being the best coach, the winningest coach, getting all the stuff the bowl games and the rings and the watch. That's what I wanted, man. That was what drove me. And then one day we were doing a special thing with our players that was so impactful. I knew when I got into college coaching that I had the luxury of being around guys that were from all over the country, right? All different socioeconomic backgrounds, all of those things. I mean, we had it all. But we were doing this one thing where we were going around the table and each player was telling their story. I love storytelling. Like, you ever watch 30-30 on ESPN? Those are great stories. I love them. I'm a storytelling guy. Well, we decided we were going to let our players tell their story one day. Matter of fact, they came in from practice. It was 2-a-days. Instead of us going right to the grind of the film and, we said, you know what, let's back off the football tonight. Let's open up and let's get these guys to tell us their story. Well, this one young man who was very quiet, we had a real hard time figuring him out. Very moody. We recruited him. We knew him, but probably surfacely. He was very, very quiet, but there was something there. A very, very low income family. We knew his mom, but this is the story that really got me. He told us in front of all of the players of that position. Okay, so a position group is usually 10 or 15 guys in the position group. It wasn't in front of the whole team. Real quiet guy. He tells this story. He says, I was 13 years old, and my mother had a boyfriend, but he was an alcoholic, and he'd come home drunk every night, and he would beat my mom. And I watched this for 4 years. I watched it for 4 years, 3 to 4 years. He said, I was 13 years old. He beat my mother, and he passed out on the couch, and I had enough. I took a shotgun, I put it up to his mouth, and I'm getting ready to pull the trigger. I'm going to kill him. And out of nowhere, my mom comes and grabs that gun and that barrel, snatches it out of my hand and says, you're not wasting your life for that. That got me. Because what I realized is there's some real darkness in the world that we can have unbelievable impact on. And that's when it really dawned on me. This is way back in the early 90s, early in my career, where it started to really matter to me why I was coaching. Because when I first started, as I mentioned, it was all about the championships and the rings and the watches, and I wanted to be the head coach and all that. And then I start getting into it, and then I hear that story. And then I hear some other stories, and I realize, dude, you are so out of touch with why God gave you this platform. Like, you are so wrong. Like, you couldn't be more wrong. And I started thinking about, you know what? That's just a guy who decided to tell us our story. We have a team full of 125 guys. How many dudes can tell a similar story? And so that's when everything started to change for me in terms of why I was coaching. Which brings me to this, and how does this parlay itself into your position? The question I will ask you and I'll challenge you with today is, what is your why? Why do you get up every day? You guys all have been blessed with incredible platforms, because here's what I truly believe. I know this. And it took me a long time to figure it out. But God only wants us to do things that will advance really His kingdom. That's what He wants. And I'm a screw up. I can tell you right now. I am not talking to you up here with a halo on my head. I screw up as much as the other guy, and I've been wrong, but I think I have a much clearer picture of what my why is. You know, when I got out of coaching, you know what I worried about? Man, I'm not going to have influence on anybody. And God gave me talents. He gave me gifts to have influence on people, right? And that's why I said, you know what? I'm going to start going around. Maybe I can't influence my guys on my team, 125, but maybe I can go to a fundraiser of 500 people and influence one in that crowd. Maybe 10, maybe 20, maybe 50. I don't know what it is. But I know this. In talking with Topper, I wanted to know, tell me what this room is going to be made up of. He said it's going to be made up of a lot of people. People right now who are leading, maybe you're the assistant pastor of small groups, or children's ministry, or teenage ministry, or whatever. Let me give you a secret. Your job is really important. Because here's what's happened to us, right? The grind of the world, the grind of everyday stuff creeps into our lives, and we get up and we drive to work every morning and we're like, oh my God, here we go again. Man, you are making a difference. Don't let Satan come in and tell you that your job is just, let's put in our 6 hours and go home. You guys have opportunities. And I want to be here to encourage you today that your job matters. Because you're not on TV, or because nobody knows what you do, or that, God honors that more. There's dudes that get out there to do it just because they are going to be on TV, or they are going to have, hey, look at this guy. I call it the look at me syndrome with players. I hate it. The players that do something good and they do something that look at me, can't stand it. And you guys, man, you're necessary. You're needed. You're in a position to make impact. Man, don't ever think your job's not worth that. Your job is worth that. What you're doing does matter. And I want you to understand, in a leadership position, man, go lead. Like, approach your job. Look, you could be doing it for your second year or your 30th year. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But you've been placed in a position that's powerful. Why? Because everything you do does make a difference. You know what? So I'm going to use the analogy of, you're the assistant coach and there's the head coach. And the head coach is the pastor and you're the assistant. They need you. Like, they can't do their job without you. Like, they can't be good or great at their job without you being great at your job. So look, when I went back to North Carolina, I'd been a head coach for 6 years. Now I'm back into the assistant role. You know what I knew the second time around as an assistant that I didn't know the first time around, having never been a head coach? Here's what I knew. I knew that I had one job as an assistant coach, and that is to make the head coach's job easier. I didn't get that the first time around. I didn't get it. Like, whatever that dude wants me to do, I wanted to be the best at it because I was just intrinsically wanting to be the best. But the second time around, everything I did was a focus of this. My job is to make his job easier. My job is to make his job easier. I want to be so great at my job that my job is to make his job easier. That's what I did. And man, you can go to work every day and you can You can let a lot of things distract you from being great at your job. That's Satan getting in your mind. That's because you know what? You got a choice every day when you go in. And hey, look, you know what? Every job's not perfect. Every job's not perfect. Let me tell you what I don't let my kids say at home. That's not fair. I don't let them say it. That's not fair. Have any of you guys read the book or heard of the book by Admiral William McRaven? He was the keynote speaker at the University of Texas graduation in Austin about 4 or 5 years ago. He's a Naval SEAL. Have any of you read the book or seen the book called Make Your Bed? I'm going to tell you a story, and here's what I say to my kids. So he was in Navy SEAL training, and every day they had to get up, and they're dinging out left and right? Ring the bell, you're out. Ring the bell, you're out. They're dropping like flies, right? Well, this dude right now comes out one day in formation, and I can't remember if it was his belt buckle or he didn't make his bed correctly, whatever it was. The sergeant that's doing the training with the Navy SEALs sends him back in, get on your fatigues. So he was basically exited from the rest of his team, and they did what they performed, and they called it a sugar cookie. A sugar cookie is what you see in some of the movies where they're running in the white sand with their gun up and they're rolling them and they're swimming them. They do it with this dude till 9 o'clock that night, and he's ready to quit. Somehow or another, he forges the gut to continue to go, right? And he makes it. And so he goes up and says, what did I do? I'm never going to do this again. Let's just say it was the quarter didn't bounce off his bed. He said, I'm going to make sure that my belt buckles shine, my shoes are tied right, my bed's made. He's going to do everything right. So now they're towards the end of Navy SEAL training, and he feels like, I got it. They're in formation again. Sergeant comes out, says, McRaven, go get your fatigues on. Well, you don't question it. You just go do it, right? Same drill, same everything again. And he's thinking the whole time, what did I screw up? What did I mess up? What in the heck did I do? So he goes up to the guy afterwards. He gets done, almost quit again, but somehow he made it. And he's saying, well, sir, what did I do wrong? He said, nothing, son. Sometimes life just isn't fair. It's not. Everything ain't fair. Somebody may make more money than you and you feel like you do a better job than them. You've been around longer than them. I don't know what all of your transgressions are, but life isn't always going to be fair. Don't compare things at your work and your job and what you do because somebody does less than you, somebody does more than you, somebody gets more money than you. You know, you can make up a lot of reasons to be unhappy because your happiness falls solely on what you choose to be and do. And in your job, you got hired on an agreement. And I tell my coaches this all the time, and it particularly was true in college football because everybody's salary is posted for everybody to see and go, oh, all these guys are overpaid, right? But you know what I had to do every year as the head coach before the season started? Every year, I said, I don't know when it's going to happen, but everybody's salary is going to come out in the paper. Don't you be mad at what Frank's making. Don't you be mad at what Topper's making, because you and I had an agreement. And unless that agreement doesn't happen the way we agreed upon, there's no reason for you to be angry, because that was our agreement. And I've seen coaches and coaches' wives read it in the paper and, oh my God, you can see it. You can read them like a book, man. Well, I tell the wives too, hey, all your husbands are the best coaches. Every one of your husbands are Vince Lombardi. I get that. Every one of them. You know what I mean? But it's market value. There's a lot of things that go into it. My point is simply this. Don't be comparing you got a job to do, and your job is to do it the best you can do it, because that's the agreement you made with whoever's in charge of hiring you. And maybe it's not fair. Here's the answer. Sugar cookie. Immediately when my son starts talking, it's a sugar cookie. Don't want to hear it. It ain't always going to be fair. But it goes back to you understanding and knowing that, man, you're in a position of great influence. And, man, you're necessary. Don't think for a second God does not know what you're doing. Don't think for a second God won't reward you. He will. But you got to do it with the right heart. And it's got to be the right intent. And I want to encourage you because, man, I have a high level of respect for what you guys do because you touch lives. You work in a church setting and you're responsible for the outcome of a lot of things with a lot of people. And quite frankly, being just a normal guy in a church, I count on y'all. Like if I drop my kids off into the nursery, I count on you. Like I do. You know, I don't want to drop my child off at the nursery right now and look at her sit in the corner and cry all day long and no one's paying attention to her. Like that's not what I want to see. Your job is to run the nursery and to make sure you have the right people in place to make sure that every kid feels loved or paid attention to or whatever, right? I mean, we count on y'all for that. But I don't want any of you guys to think in here and think that you're sitting here and think your job is insignificant. It's absolutely false. The assistant coach, the assistant pastor, the assistant anything is as much or more important than the pastor. But I've been on both sides. And I can say that with a huge degree of certainty. The second thing that I want to talk on real quick is this, and I feel very strongly about this. I just spoke this past weekend in South Dakota to a bunch of coaches because I look at coaching and the ministry, and there's a lot of parallels to it, man. So let me tell you what the number one parallel is, because one of my best friends, probably two of my best friends are pastors. Like I feel guilty that I call him Mike and not Pastor Mike, but he won't let me call him Pastor Mike, right? Because we're like really good friends. And like when I hear what the similarities are between coaching and pastoring, it's unbelievable. But you know the number one thing is? Time. Man, y'all are on the grind, and you want your church to be the best. You want your small groups to be the best. You want your whatever. I get it. You're on the grind. But here is what I'm going to tell you. Okay? 4 words. Under your own roof. I'm going to say it again. Under your own roof. Why do I call it that? Because under your own roof lies the people that we can forget about. And it's not okay. It's not okay. And I will tell you this. Everybody's got ambition to be great at their job. Everybody's got ambition. You know, I told the coaches the other day, I said, look, I might hurt some of your guys' feelings, okay? But I've been in your shoes where all you want to do is succeed and be the best. I've done that. I've been there, okay? I said, but you got to understand that you chose to be married and or you chose to have children, and we spend all the time with everyone else's kids, and then we don't spend the time we need with our own. And that's not okay. And then we come home from work, and we put the remote in our hand, and we lay back because we don't want to be bothered, and then we become a remote control dad. Okay? It's not okay that we walk in and our families get the rest of us instead of the best of us. It's not okay. I remember when I was a defensive coordinator at Texas. Guys, I had 3 kids under 6 years old. And I knew when I drove home, and I've been zapped. I mean, I got nothing left, man. It's been recruiting. It's been game day. It's been whatever, right? And, man, I can find every excuse of why I'm so tired, and I just need to go home and put the remote in my hand and just veg out on the couch. But I got 3 kids under 6, for all you young people in here, that were waiting for Daddy to walk through the door. You know what I had to do? It was almost like a workout. Like I'm getting myself mentally prepared. Like when I'm driving home going, all right, man, when you walk through the door, man, you got to take it to another level. I mean, I had to get like mentally right for this. Because a lot of people are going to go, man, I'm just working so hard. I'm so tired. And let me tell you something, man. If being tired was the criteria for you doing something well or not, you would never be good at anything. You know why? Because life is just tiring. I don't care if you're raising small kids. I don't care if you're raising teenagers. I don't care if you're working. Man, life is just tiring. Look, the criteria for me to be great at something is, well, if I'm tired, I just can't be great at it. Well, if I'm tired, I'm just not going to be. Well, if you're tired, know you're tired and decide you're still going to be great at it because it's still a choice. I don't care what you say. It's still a choice. And it is not right for you to come home from work and your children and your wife get the worst you got. It's not okay. And you know what? In the professions that I've done and that you do, it can happen. You don't even have to give anybody a nonverbal or a head shake. It happens. Only thing I'm asking you to do is be conscientious when you get to that world and not let it happen. Because you chose to be married and you chose to have children. Guess what? I didn't get to choose what family I was born in. You didn't either. But by God, you know what you had a choice of? Is whether you were going to have children or not. Like, do I need to go into that? Like, you had a choice, right? I mean, well, that's what you chose to do. And I told the coaches last week, I said, you know what you talk to your players about all the time? Accountability. Man, you want to be accountable. You want them to do things right. When he goes right and you want him to go left, you're going to ask him, why are you going right? You should have been going left. You want accountability. You don't want excuses. Either does your children. Either does your wife. And it may hit a nerve with some people in here, and that's fine. Because what I'm saying is real. And I want to challenge you with that because although you're doing these great things with your job and your influence here at whatever your job is, man, you got another job that's just as important, if not more. And that's to take care of the ones under your own roof. So never, never, ever forget that that is factual. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is this. I think it's really important. I know in the coaching world it is for me. And this is just food for thought for you guys. I think it's really important that we keep in our small circle friends that aren't related to our job. I'm just going to throw that out to you. Like, let me tell you something. When I got fired at Auburn in 2012, okay, there were dudes that were my best friend that they vaporized. They vaporized. Hadn't heard from them since. But I know people, so that didn't shock me. But here's what helped me. I got people that have nothing to do with football that are my best friends, starting with my wife. She could care less whether I coach football or I'm a plumber. She don't care. She is not impressed with me, by the way, at all. Nor are my children. But I will tell you this, that it really matters that you find somebody outside of your job and your work where you don't have to always sit around and talk about the church. So like my best friends right now, one of them's a principal, one of them's a banker, one of them's a pastor. None of them have anything to do with football. None of them. They love football, some of them. Some of them just could care less. And I will highly recommend that you build and forge relationships that are outside of your work environment. I think it's healthy. I think it's really, really healthy. And so I really wanted to throw that in there as a little nugget to think about as well. Think about your friends outside your circle at church. And look, that doesn't mean you don't have the ones inside. But it's really cool to be able to go out to dinner with somebody who, no offense, really doesn't care what's happening at your church. I mean, really. I mean, I've just found that that's been very, very healthy for me. And then I'll leave you with this. Going back to one of the earliest things I said with what you guys do for a living, I really truly believe this. I know that at some point God, when I'm gone, man, when this is over, and look, I've been blessed. I've been a part of 7 division championships, 5 conference championships, and 2 national championships. That's a lot of winning. More than most, not as much as some. And when I die and I go to heaven, I truly believe I'm going to stand in front of God. And I know He doesn't care about wins. He doesn't care about how many rings I got. You can take those and melt them down and make spoons out of them. He doesn't care about my watches. He doesn't care about my money. He doesn't care about any of that stuff. He cares about what legacy did you leave? What kind of parent were you to the children that you brought into the world? What kind of husband were you? And then last, but the most strong and most important thing that I'm going to have to answer for, and I'm praying that I have the right answer, and I'm praying that you do too, is He's going to say, what did you do to advance my kingdom? I truly believe that's going to be a face-to-face. I do. And my prayer for myself and for you guys is that we can stand in front of Him and say, God, you know what? I'm a screw up, and I didn't do it right all the time, but my heart was right, and my intent was right, and that I did my best with all the circumstances around me. I did my best to try to advance your kingdom. And I truly believe that's what He's going to want to hear. And so I will encourage you, and I will invite you to think about those things as you go forward every day in your job, for you to try to be the best you can be at the gifts that God blessed you with and the influence that you have on a daily basis. That fair? God bless. Thank y'all.